I thought the scariest moment of my day was crossing that rickety bridge, but nothing prepared me for what happened afterward. Alone in the forest, with adrenaline still coursing through me, Bailey's teasing grin turned into something more. Trust was broken that day, but in the heat of the moment, we discovered something unexpected, something raw and undeniable that blurred the boundaries between friendship and longing. Before we dive into this powerful story, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you find it compelling, don't forget to subscribe. I've always been the cautious type, the one who double-checks locks before leaving the house, memorizes exit routes in new places, and never starts a road trip without mapping out every gas station along the way. Some might call me paranoid, I call it prepared. Routine is my safety net, my comfort zone. My golden retriever. Buddy seems to agree. He's sprawled out on the kitchen floor, his tail gently thumping against the tiles as I lace up my hiking boots. He knows something's up. Our typical Saturday mornings involve a slow start, coffee, and maybe a walk around the block. But today's different. I glance at the clock, stalling. I've agreed to a hiking trip with Bailey, my best friend since college. The person who somehow thrives on chaos and spontaneity. The yin to my yang, the fire to my water. We couldn't be more opposite if we tried. And yet, here I am dragging myself out of my safe bubble for what she promised would be an adventure I'd never forget. Ready for a life-changing experience? Bailey's voice bursts from my phone, cheerful and a little too loud as it always is. I grab Buddy's leash, trying to mask my unease with a quick quip. Define life-changing. Her laugh is bright and infectious, the kind of laugh that makes people want to follow her into the unknown. Don't worry, Riley. You'll love this one. Trust me. That word, trust. It's the foundation of our friendship, the reason I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone for her. Bailey trusts me to keep her grounded. I trust her not to push me too far. Or at least, that's how it's always been. The drive to the trailhead is uneventful, save for Buddy's excited panting in the back seat. He's thrilled at the prospect of a new adventure, his golden fur practically glowing in the sunlight streaming through the car windows. Me? Not so much. When I pull into the parking lot, Bailey is already there, practically vibrating with excitement. Her bright red jacket makes her look like a magazine ad for outdoor gear. Riley, she calls, waving like we haven't seen each other in months instead of 2 days ago. Hey, I say, trying to match her enthusiasm as I let Buddy out of the car. He bounds toward her, tail wagging. At least one of us is excited. You're going to thank me for this, she says, adjusting her backpack and flashing me a grin. Her confidence is infectious, but it also makes me uneasy. We'll see, I mutter, clipping Buddy's leash to my belt as we head toward the trailhead. The first stretch of the hike is stunning, I'll give her that. The path is wide and well-maintained, bordered by wildflowers and shaded by towering trees. The air smells of pine and earth, and for a moment I let myself relax. Isn't this amazing? Bailey asks, her voice full of wonder. It's nice, I admit, though my attention is half on Buddy, who's sniffing every bush and patch of grass like his life depends on it. Bailey launches into a story about her latest escapade, a kayaking trip that ended with her rescuing a stranded duck. I listen, nodding at the right moments, but my focus keeps drifting to the forest around us. There's something about the way the trees press in, the way the shadows stretch longer than they should. Relax, Riles, Bailey says, nudging me playfully. Today's about letting go. Letting go. Sounds so simple, so freeing. But as I glance at Buddy, his ears flicking toward every rustle in the underbrush, I can't shake the feeling that this hike is going to be anything but simple. What are you planning, Bailey? I ask, trying to keep my tone light. Her grin widens, mischievous and full of secrets. You'll see. And just like that, the unease in my chest tightens into a knot. Letting go, I think, as we venture deeper into the woods. Letting go of what? The forest swallowed us whole, its canopy casting dappled shadows on the narrow trail ahead. Every step was accompanied by the crunch of dry leaves underfoot, the occasional trill of a bird somewhere in the distance, and the rhythmic panting of Buddy trotting alongside me. It was serene, almost enough to make me forget my apprehension. Almost. Bailey was a few paces ahead, moving with the ease and confidence of someone who belonged here. Her bright red jacket was a sharp contrast to the muted greens and browns of the forest. She glanced back at me with a grin that felt like a dare. You know, she started, her tone light and teasing. There's this theory about people like us. I tugged gently on Buddy's leash, keeping him close. Oh? What kind of people are we? Opposites, she said, hopping over a root in the path. You're the steady one. Orderly, cautious. I'm the wild card, chaos, spontaneity. We balance each other out. I snorted. Is that your way of saying I'm boring? Not boring, she corrected with a laugh. Grounded. Stable. But you could use a little unpredictability now and then. Keeps life exciting. I glanced at Buddy, his tail wagging but his ears alert, scanning the trail ahead like he could sense something I couldn't. His unease was rubbing off on me. I tightened my grip on his leash. What's this big surprise anyway? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Bailey's grin widened. You'll see. She thrived on secrets and grand reveals, and for her, the suspense was half the fun. For me it was torture. But I followed her deeper into the woods, curiosity outweighing my better judgment. The trail narrowed, the trees pressing closer together as if the forest itself wanted to close us in. Bailey's pace didn't falter, her steps confident and purposeful. Buddy, however, was growing restless. His ears flicked back, and he kept glancing over his shoulder. Buddy's acting weird, I said, my voice quieter than usual. He's fine, Bailey replied with a dismissive wave. Dogs are intuitive. Sure, but he probably just smells a squirrel. I nodded, though the knot in my chest tightened. The forest, which had felt peaceful earlier, now seemed watchful. Every rustle of leaves was magnified, every shadow darker than it should be. Okay, serious question, Bailey said, breaking the silence. What's the riskiest thing you've ever done? I laughed nervously. Define risky. Something that made your heart race, she said, sidestepping a fallen branch. Something that made you feel alive. I thought for a moment, flipping through memories like pages in a book. Maybe. Speaking in front of a crowd? That felt pretty risky. Bailey groaned dramatically. Riley, that doesn't count. I mean real risk. Like climbing a mountain or, oh, I don't know, kissing a stranger. I shook my head. Neither of which I've done, thank you very much. Exactly, she said with a triumphant grin. That's why today is so important. Trust me, you'll thank me later. There it was again. That phrase. Trust me. It hung in the air like a challenge I wasn't sure I wanted to accept. The trail opened into a small clearing, sunlight spilling over the grass in liquid gold. Bailey stopped, surveying the area with her hands on her hips. Perfect, she murmured to herself. Perfect for what? Asked, already dreading the answer. She didn't reply. Instead, she knelt to adjust her shoelaces, her movements quick and deliberate. Let's keep moving. We're almost there. Buddy barked once. Sharp and unexpected. I turned to him, startled. He was staring at Bailey, his tail stiff. What is it, boy? I asked, crouching to stroke his head. Bailey straightened, her expression unreadable. He's just excited. Come on, Riley. Don't overthink everything. I tried to take her words at face value, but something about Buddy's posture, a mix of alertness and hesitation, made my unease grow. Still, I followed Bailey out of the clearing and back into the thick of the forest. The trail grew steeper, the trees denser, their branches forming a lattice above us. Bailey was a few steps ahead now, her pace faster, more purposeful. I lagged behind, Buddy's leash taut as he pressed close to my side. My breath came heavier, not from the climb, but from the weight of unease pressing down on me. As the path curved sharply upward, Bailey stopped abruptly. She turned to face me, her grin back in full force. We're here, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I followed her gaze and froze. Just beyond the next rise was a narrow wooden bridge, suspended between two cliffs. The planks looked old and weathered, the ropes frayed from years of exposure. Below, a deep gorge yawned, the sound of rushing water rising to meet us. My stomach dropped. Bailey, what is this? Her grin widened. This, my dear Riley, is your surprise. I stared at the bridge, my breath catching in my throat. It swayed slightly in the breeze, the wooden planks creaking under their own weight. Below, the river raged, the sound of rushing water bouncing off the jagged cliffs. Bailey, you cannot be serious, I said, my voice trembling. You expect me to cross that? Bailey shrugged nonchalantly, the mischievous grin on her face growing wider. It's not as bad as it looks. The bridge is sturdy. People use it all the time. People, I repeated, glancing down at Buddy, whose posture mirrored my unease. His tail was still, his ears pinned forward as he stared at the swaying structure. Not me. Definitely not me. Bailey took a step closer, her tone softening slightly. Come on, Riley. You've got this. It's just a bridge. You trust me, don't you? Trust. The word hung in the air between us like a challenge. I wanted to trust her, I always had. But standing here with the gorge yawning below me and the wind picking up, I wasn't so sure. What's the point of this? I asked, trying to stall. Why do I need to cross it? Because it's symbolic, Bailey said, gesturing to the bridge like it was a piece of art in a gallery. You've always been so careful, so scared to take risks. This is your chance to prove to yourself that you can do it. That you can let go of the fear holding you back. Her words stung not because they were cruel, but because they felt too close to the truth. I hesitated, glancing back at Buddy, who was now whimpering softly. Fine, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. But if I die? You're explaining it to my parents. Bailey laughed, clapping her hands together. That's the spirit. It didn't feel like the spirit. It felt like a death sentence. My legs felt like lead as I approached the edge of the bridge. The wooden planks looked even thinner up close, their edges splintered and weathered. I reached for the rope railing, my fingers gripping the rough, fraying fibers. You're doing great, Bailey called from behind me, her voice filled with cheer. I took a tentative step forward, then another. The bridge swayed slightly under my weight, and my heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the river below. Buddy barked once, sharp and insistent. I glanced back at him, his body tense, his eyes locked on me. Stay, boy, I murmured, my voice shaking. I'll be right back. I took another step, the plank creaking ominously. See? You've got this. Bailey's voice cut through the rush of the river. But then I noticed it, her phone. She was holding it up, camera aimed squarely at me. Bailey, I said, my voice rising. Are you filming this? It's just for us, she called back, lowering the phone slightly. To show you how far you've come. Turn it off. I snapped, anger rising to the surface. This isn't funny. She hesitated, lowering the phone but not turning it off completely. Riley, relax. You're overreacting. Overreacting. The word hit like a slap, igniting something in me that had been simmering for years. My grip on the ropes tightened as I took another unsteady step. Relax. I shot back, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and fury. You didn't tell me what this was. You didn't give me a choice. And now you're recording me? How is this supposed to help me, Bailey? It's just a bridge, she shouted, her voice defensive now. And I'm trying to help you grow. The bridge swayed violently as the wind picked up, and I froze, my breath hitching. I glanced down, the rushing water blurring in my vision. I don't think I can do this, I muttered, mostly to myself. Yes, you can, Bailey called, her voice insistent. You're stronger than you think, Riley. You just have to trust me. But as I stood there, clinging to the ropes with the wind whipping around me, I realized something. I didn't trust her. Not in this moment. And that thought shook me more than the bridge ever could. The world shrank to the swaying bridge beneath my feet and the roar of the river below. My breath came in shallow gasps as I gripped the rope railing, its fraying fibers cutting into my palms. Every creak of the wooden planks sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. You're fine, Bailey called, her voice distant despite being just a few feet behind me. You're almost halfway there. Halfway. The word made my stomach churn. I glanced back at her, her expression unreadable. She wasn't moving, just standing there, her bright jacket a sharp contrast to the muted tones of the forest. Her calm demeanor did nothing to steady my nerves. Stay back, I said, my voice tight. The bridge is already swaying enough. I'm not moving, she replied, holding up her hands in mock surrender. You're doing great, Riley. Just keep going. Buddy barked from the safety of the cliff's edge, his tail stiff, his body tense. His sharp, anxious bark broke through the rush of the river, grounding me for a brief moment. "It's okay, buddy," I murmured, though my voice trembled. I wasn't sure if I was trying to reassure him or myself. I turned my focus forward. The far end of the bridge still maddeningly far away. One step at a time, I told myself. Just one step at a time. My legs wobbled as I shuffled forward, the planks beneath me groaning with each movement. "You've got this." Bailey's voice cut through the tension again. It was meant to be encouraging, but it felt hollow. I didn't dare look back at her. The wind picked up, and the bridge swayed violently. I froze, clutching the rope so tightly my knuckles burned. "Bailey!" I shouted, my voice rising with panic. "This bridge isn't safe." "It's fine," she called back, her tone too casual. "I've crossed it before. It's sturdy." I glanced at the ropes near the center of the bridge, where the fibers were visibly worn, some barely hanging on. My heart raced. "Sturdy? Did you even check it before you brought me here?" She didn't answer immediately, and the silence was more damning than anything she could have said. "You're overthinking," she said finally, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Overthinking?" I snapped, anger bubbling to the surface. "Bailey, this isn't some mental exercise. This is a death trap." "Just keep moving," she said, deflecting. "You're almost there." Her words were no longer a comfort. They felt like pressure, like manipulation. Still, I inched forward, my grip on the ropes tightening with every step. The bridge groaned again, the sound echoing through the canyon below. My foot slipped slightly on a loose plank and I clung to the ropes, my breath catching in my throat. "I can't do this," I muttered, my fear mixing with frustration. "Yes, you can," Bailey shouted. "Trust me, Riley. You've come this far. Don't stop now." That word, trust, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Did I trust her? She had brought me here without warning, without telling me what to expect. She had pushed me into this, holding my fear against me like a challenge. I forced myself to move again, the far end of the bridge drawing closer with each shaky step. My legs felt like jelly, my hands raw from gripping the rope so tightly. The only thing keeping me going was the thought of solid ground and Buddy's warm, steady presence. When I finally reached the end, my knees buckled, and I collapsed onto the dirt. My chest heaved as I struggled to catch my breath. Buddy was there in an instant, licking my face and whining softly. His familiar warmth grounded me, pulling me back from the edge of my panic. Bailey stepped off the bridge a moment later, her grin wide and triumphant. "See," she said, her voice too bright. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" I stared up at her, my hands trembling. "What the hell, Bailey? What was that all about?" Her smile faltered for a moment before returning, though it didn't reach her eyes. "It was about proving to yourself that you could do it. You did amazing, Riley. You should be proud." I wanted to believe her, but her words felt empty. The anger simmering in my chest flared to life. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. Bailey reached out to help me up, her hand extended, but I hesitated. My legs still felt weak, and anger bubbled just beneath the surface. Buddy pressed against my side, his warm body a reminder of safety and stability in a moment when neither felt within reach. "You knew how dangerous that was," I said, my voice low but trembling with fury. "Why would you push me to do something like that?" Bailey shrugged, her usual carefree attitude slipping into something more defensive. "It wasn't that dangerous, Riley. You made it across, didn't you? You're alive. You're fine." Her nonchalance made my chest tighten, frustration turning into something sharper. "That's not the point, Bailey. You didn't warn me. You didn't ask me if I was okay with it. You just threw me into it." She crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "It was a trust exercise, and you passed. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" I snapped, my voice rising. Buddy barked softly, sensing my agitation. "You call this trust? You lied to me about what we were doing. You filmed me without asking. And you pushed me onto that death trap of a bridge for what? To prove some ridiculous point." Her confident facade cracked, her eyes narrowing. "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you everything. And I filmed it for us, Riley. To show you later so you could see how far you've come." No, I said firmly, shaking my head. You didn't do it for me. You did it for you. Bailey's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she looked ready to argue. But the silence between us stretched, heavy and tense. I took a step back, suddenly noticing the phone still clutched in her hand, its screen glowing faintly. You were recording the whole time, I said, realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about helping me. This was about you. Her grip on the phone tightened. That's not true, she said quickly. I just wanted to capture the moment. To show you how strong you are. To post it online? I asked, my voice cutting through her excuses. To show everyone what a great friend you are? To get likes and comments for making me do something I didn't want to do? Her face flushed and she glanced away, guilt flashing in her eyes before she could mask it. You're blowing this out of proportion, Riley. Am I? I shot back. You brought me out here without telling me what we were doing. You put me in danger without my consent. And then you filmed it for your own ego. Bailey flinched at the word, her defensiveness crumbling. It wasn't like that, she said quietly, but her tone lacked the conviction I needed to hear. I felt my chest tighten, the hurt mixing with anger. You've always pushed me, Bailey. Always. And I went along with it because I thought you cared about me. Because I thought you were doing it for my good. But this wasn't for me. This was for you. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time she looked small. Vulnerable. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said softly. I wanted you to see what you're capable of. I thought if I pushed you, you'd thank me. Thank you. I repeated, incredulous. Bailey, you don't get it. Trust isn't forcing someone to do what you think they should. It's respecting their boundaries. It's giving them the choice to decide for themselves. Buddy nudged my leg, his soft whine grounding me. I crouched to stroke his head, my hands trembling. For years, I'd let Bailey push me, convince me that her way was the right way. But this time something had shifted. Bailey took a small step toward me, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to make you feel this way. I thought I was helping. I thought. She trailed off, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. I stood slowly, meeting her gaze. Helping isn't forcing someone into a situation they're not ready for. It's standing by them while they figure it out themselves. For the first time, Bailey didn't have a quick comeback or a witty remark. She looked down at the phone in her hand, her fingers trembling as she powered it off and slipped it into her pocket. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't think it would hurt you like this. I just wanted you to feel alive. I don't need a bridge to feel alive, Bailey, I said, my voice soft but firm. I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I can trust you. And right now, I don't know if I can. Her face crumpled, but she nodded slowly. I'll make it up to you, she said, her voice barely audible. I promise. I didn't reply. The words sounded good, but they weren't enough. Not yet. I turned away, starting back toward the trailhead. Buddy followed close behind, his leash slack in my hand. Behind me, I heard Bailey call my name, her voice laced with desperation. But I didn't stop. As I walked, the forest felt different. Quieter. The sunlight filtering through the trees didn't seem as warm. And the rustling leaves carried an edge I hadn't noticed before. For the first time, I questioned everything about my friendship with Bailey. And I wondered if I'd been wrong about her all along. The trail stretched ahead, quiet except for the crunch of leaves beneath my boots and the soft panting of Buddy at my side. The sounds of the forest, once calming, now felt oppressive, their weight pressing down on me. I tried to focus on the rhythm of my steps, but Bailey's voice echoed behind me, distant but persistent. Riley, wait, she called, her tone frantic. Please, can we just talk? I didn't stop. I couldn't. The anger in my chest burned too hot, and the tight knot of betrayal refused to loosen. Buddy glanced back once, his ears flicking at her voice. But he stayed close, his steady presence my only comfort. Her footsteps quickened against the rocky trail, and soon she was beside me, her face flushed and her breathing uneven. I'm sorry, she said, her voice softer now. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stopped walking, finally turning to face her. The look in her eyes, a mix of guilt and desperation, only fueled my frustration. Didn't mean for what, Bailey? I asked, my voice trembling. Didn't mean to trick me into doing something dangerous? Didn't mean to film me without asking? Or didn't mean to use our friendship as leverage for whatever this was supposed to prove? Her lips parted, but no words came out. For a moment she looked as lost as I felt. I thought if I pushed you, you'd see what you're capable of. That you'd thank me for it later. Thank you. The words burst out of me, sharp and bitter. Bailey, you don't get it. You pushed me too far. You didn't respect my boundaries. You didn't even give me a choice. I was trying to help, she said, her voice rising with emotion. You've always been so scared, Riley. Scared of taking risks, scared of failing, scared of living. I thought. She stopped herself, her hands clenching into fists. I thought if I showed you what you could do, it would change things for you. Change things. I repeated, shaking my head. Bailey, I don't need you to fix me. I don't need you to decide what's best for me. I need you to listen, to respect me, to trust that I know my own limits. Her shoulders slumped and she looked away, her gaze fixed on the dirt path beneath us. I wanted to help you grow, she said quietly. And in the process you broke my trust, I replied, my voice softening. The sharp edge of my anger dulled by the ache that had settled in my chest. Do you even realize how humiliating it was to find out you were recording me? To know that you cared more about your own idea of what I needed than what I actually needed. Tears welled in her eyes. And for the first time Bailey looked vulnerable. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said, her voice trembling. I thought it would make you happy. I sighed, the weight of her words sinking in. You don't make someone happy by forcing them into something they don't want to do. That's not trust. That's control. She looked up at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're my best friend, Riley. I just wanted to see you happy. To show you what you're capable of. And you didn't think to ask me first? I said, my tone quieter now but still firm. She wiped at her eyes, shaking her head. I thought you'd say no. And I didn't want you to miss out. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Bailey, if you'd just asked, if you'd given me the choice, I might have said yes. Or I might not have. But at least it would have been my decision. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the air heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Buddy nudged my leg. His warm brown eyes filled with concern, as if he could sense the tension between us. I'm sorry, Bailey said again, her voice trembling. I know I messed up. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Riley, I can't lose you. I looked at her, my heart aching at the raw honesty in her expression. I wanted to believe her, but trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt with words alone. It would take time, and I wasn't sure if I had it in me to give her that time just yet. I don't know, Bailey, I said finally, my voice heavy with emotion. I need space. I need to think. She nodded slowly, her face crumpling as she stepped back. Okay, she whispered. Take all the time you need. I turned away, starting back toward the trailhead. Buddy trotted beside me, his leash slack in my hand. The sound of Bailey's quiet sobs faded into the distance as I walked, the forest once again swallowing me whole. The trailhead came into view, the late afternoon sunlight painting the forest in soft gold. My legs ached and my chest felt heavy, but a strange sense of relief settled over me as the open sky replaced the suffocating canopy of trees. Buddy trotted ahead, his tail wagging, oblivious to the emotional weight I carried. Bailey was a few paces behind, her footsteps quieter now, almost hesitant. The vibrant energy she usually exuded was gone, replaced by an air of uncertainty. The silence between us felt fragile, like a bridge we both wanted to cross but weren't sure how to step onto. When we reached the parking lot, I turned to face her, my hand resting on Buddy's leash. She was looking down, her hands fiddling with the zipper of her jacket. For the first time all day, Bailey seemed unsure of what to say. Riley, she began, her voice cautious. I'm sorry. For everything. For the bridge. The recording, for not listening to you. I studied her face, searching for something in her expression. There was no defensiveness, no forced cheer. Just regret and, for the first time, a hint of vulnerability. Why did you do it? I asked, my tone quieter than before. The real reason. She sighed, her breath visible in the cooling air. Because I wanted to be the one to show you something amazing, she admitted, her voice trembling. I wanted to prove that I could help you see the world the way I do, big and exciting, instead of scary and overwhelming. I thought I was helping, but I see now that I was just trying to make myself feel important. Her honesty caught me off guard, softening the edges of my anger. Bailey, I said, my voice steady, you don't have to change me to be important. You're my best friend. That's enough. Her eyes glistened with tears and she nodded, biting her lip as if to keep herself from crying. I promise I'll do better, she said. No more surprises, no more pushing. Just us. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Good. Because I don't think I can handle another one of your adventures anytime soon. She laughed softly, the sound tentative but real. Buddy barked once, wagging his tail as if to join in. And for the first time since the hike began, I felt the tension between us start to ease. As we loaded into the car, Bailey turned to me again. You were incredible out there, you know? Braver than I've ever seen you. I raised an eyebrow, unable to resist a playful jab. You mean when I nearly had a heart attack on that bridge? She grinned sheepishly, rubbing the back of her neck. Okay, fair. But seriously, Riley, you were amazing. I'm proud of you. I glanced out the window, watching the forest retreat into the distance as we drove. The anger and hurt weren't entirely gone, but they had started to fade, replaced by something quieter. Growth, maybe. Or understanding. By the time we reached my house, the sun had dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard. Buddy jumped out of the car first, running to the front door with his usual boundless energy. Bailey lingered by the driver's side, her expression thoughtful. Thanks for not giving up on me, she said softly. I know I don't deserve it. I paused, considering her words. Friends don't give up on each other, Bailey. But trust takes time to rebuild. You're going to have to prove it. Her face lit up with a small, hopeful smile. I will. I promise. I believed her, at least enough to give her the chance. Trust wasn't something that could be mended overnight, but I wasn't ready to let go of our friendship entirely. Relationships were like bridges. Fragile, needing care and maintenance to stay strong. And sometimes they needed rebuilding. As I stepped inside, Buddy at my side, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected. Bailey and I had a long way to go, but for now, I was okay with taking it one step at a time.